Mama and the other women told stories about him. They spoke of one who would bring peace, the one who Samuel said would come when Samuel stood upon the wall and the arrows could not stop him. Some of the women doubted and said they were just stories, but others said that he would come and make the mighty and wicked men leave. Some had dreams and said it would happen soon, that there were miracles abroad in the land already. And poor men whispered of angels and told glad tidings in darkened doorways. But in the streets of Zarahemla, the children learned to hide when they heard hooves on the stone. They learned not to play too far from their own front doors and not to be out after dark. Mama put me to bed early every night. She said it would not do for me to be up. Dark things happen in dark times, she said. But from my window before I went to sleep, I could count the stars in the northern sky and watch for the new star that Samuel had said would come. I wondered if I would notice if it came. Once, when I was playing ball with the other boys, I said how I'd been counting stars. All the boys but one laughed at me and said their fathers had told them such things were foolishness and to throw stones at anyone who counted stars, and that they just might. Then came the day when the notice appeared. It was written on a small, shiny piece of ziff and nailed by its corner to our door. The hammering woke me up, and I saw the scrap in my mother's trembling hand. She wouldn't read it to me. She wouldn't let me go outside. And it wasn't until later that morning, when the soldiers came in their armor for Father, that I realized what it had said. That night, the soldiers brought Father home. He was dirty, and his robe was wet. When the soldiers left, Father said that he and the other men of the church had been forced to gather wood all day, dry wood from the forest, kindling wood. The men had been ordered to make a huge pile of wood in the center of town. Father said that we weren't to leave our house. He said if the sign Samuel had spoken of, the new star on the night without darkness, didn't come by the morning after next, something terrible would happen. We knelt in a circle and prayed, each of us in turn, until my knees hurt so much I couldn't kneel anymore, and I had to sit on the floor. Still we prayed, and it was dark. The next day seemed to last forever, a day without school, without work, without play. Father told us that the prophet Nephi had prophesied we would be safe. Father said that we needed to have faith in Nephi's promise, but I was still scared, and I knew that Mama was too. We sat in our house, hearing the clatter of horses' hooves on the stones of the street, listening to the low voices of the soldiers who passed outside our door. Mama held me and stroked my hair. She got up to get some food for me, but I wasn't hungry. That evening we prayed. Then we gathered at the window in our kitchen, the one that faces west. We sat in silence and watched as the sun crept down against the mountains. Sinking, 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 and the mountains looked orange against it. I felt my heart burn within me. Mama held me, her arm warm against my chest. And as the tip of the sun's fire took its last peek over the hills, I knew. The sun disappeared, but the air was still bright. Mama, I cried, Mama, it came. I got up and ran to my bedroom. There, framed in the window by my bed, was a star, so bright I could have seen it at midday. We poured out into the street. We didn't fear the soldiers by our door. They had fallen to the ground with their hands to their eyes. Father stepped over them and began running, and Mama and I ran after him all the way to the center of town. And there, in the square by the big pile of wood, were other men and women, girls and boys, holding hands and singing hymns to the Lord, to him who would be crucified and not be spared. And later that night, Nephi led us down to the river. He baptized as many as would believe, and there were crowds of people standing there on the bank under the trees, hundreds of people waiting to be baptized, and the soldiers taking off their breastplates. Before long, it seemed like the sun rose again, and the crowd grew quiet to see it. They stood on the land and in the water and watched it rising over the east, as if it were the coming of morning. I crept into my mother's lap and quietly fell asleep. And as I slept, I dreamt of the little baby boy crying on a hillside, surrounded by sheep. The skies above him were filled with new stars, and each star seemed to be an angel, each holding in his arms out and singing, Behold, he cometh unto his own.